So, lone rider here, and wanted to just throw something out there about mountain biking, in particular about bike access and trail use in public parks. There's a handful of people who still believe, for some strange reason, that mountain biking doesn't work, that should trail networks don't work, that you can't have mountain biking in public parks where you also have hiking and other activities. And the fact is, that's not the case. If you look at trail networks throughout the country and throughout most of the state of New Jersey, you'll find that most of them allow some form of mountain bike access. Maybe not on every single trail, maybe not in every single park, but it's generally speaking something that's incorporated into the park system. And generally speaking, where mountain biking is an activity that's officially sanctioned, it's on the same trails as people are hiking, trail running, walking their dogs, riding horses, etc. With that in mind, it seems strange that there's so many people who, again, don't seem to get it, right? And overall, I think they're a minority of people. I think that the vast majority of people understand that this works. But unfortunately, policy isn't based on what most people understand to be true. Policy oftentimes is based on what a handful of loud and obnoxious people make us think about. And if those people happen to be wrong, well, it doesn't really matter if they substitute volume for facts. And we saw that here in New Jersey, of course, a few years ago. Myself and several other riders were working for mountain bike access. It started out with like a handful of us, and it ended up with hundreds of people, thousands of people involved. The mountain bike access ultimately fell through. It was canceled by the same government that had already voted to approve it, pay for it, and amend the contract of the contractor working on the trail plan to pay them extra for it. And that contract, according to Open Record Act request that I filed with the government, was never re-amended afterwards. So, I mean, presumably they stole $64,000 from the government of Union County, New Jersey, at a minimum, right? And nobody did anything about it. Nobody really cared. I contacted a couple people about it. Contacted somebody who did the initial article in the Star Ledger on the controversy over mountain bike access in Washington from, I think, 2014. I contacted the County Watchers Watchdog Group, Government Watchdog Group. They never really followed up on it. Their approach, in fact, they were one of the few local organizations providing news coverage of the issue. But their approach seemed to be, well, these bikers are special interest and they want some access. They never really got down to the nitty-gritty of the fact that the ban was extra legal, that it was concocted by the unelected behind closed doors without any public input, that it really didn't have any solid legislative basis, that the government, after 20 years, couldn't even get the story straight about the origin of it. They had like 3 or 4 different timelines for how and when things got rolling, which in and of itself tell you that somebody's not telling the truth. And obviously that it's not based on any solid legislation either, because if there was an actual law or ordinance that actually was enacted in order to ban mountain biking, all you would need to do is point to when that law or ordinance was passed, and that would be the end of it. There wouldn't be 3 or 4 different stories, because there would just be the story related to that. We have the fact that the ordinance they say bans mountain biking predates the ban by over 10 years. It was never linked in writing until over, well, nearly 20 years after the ban was created in 1995. And the ordinance that they actually talk about, well, if you look at it, it never actually talks about mountain biking. It regulates cycling on roads, sidewalks, paths, and says something about not blocking cars. None of this sounds like there's anything to do with single track. Then you have the government's own statements in an Open Record Act request response that I filed, that I actually had to threaten to sue them to get the response to, because they tried to exploit a OPRA exception that they should have known wasn't valid for that particular thing, but they tried to use it to deny the response anyway. When I finally got the response, it actually showed emails back and forth amongst the county officials that included, amongst other things, the county government saying to its own people, yeah, the new signs we put up in county parks saying you can't ride your bike there, they quote this old ordinance, but when people go and read the ordinance, they think that it refers to paved paths and that they can't ride on the paved paths. Well, the ordinance, according to us, is about trails, but since the ordinance doesn't talk about trails and it does talk about paved infrastructure instead, what they actually propose doing is posting a separate set of signs underneath the other ones to say, well, I know this is what the ordinance we put on these other signs says, but actually this is what it really means, even though it's not in the ordinance and you can't find it by looking it up. I shit you not. I mean, no offense, that's what they said. They also had the county parks police officials saying something to the effect of the threat to confiscate your bike for riding in the park is essentially illegal. That's not a law enforcement action, that's grand larceny. We can't do that. It's not authorized by any legislation. Yet, what did they do? Well, on flyers posted on kiosks throughout the park system, they threatened openly to confiscate anybody's bike. After, this is probably why I had to threaten to sue them to get that information, after the head of the county parks police told them that they could not make that threat, that it was not legally authorized. They did it anyway, right? And this is I guess the mindset too. It's not just a question of, well, there's people who don't want to share. Right? There's people who don't want to share a public resource. It's that in order to avoid sharing a public resource, they'll break the law, they'll make illegal threats, they'll do just about anything under the sun. They have no morals, no ethics, etc. And in that sense, it's bigger than obviously the issue of mountain biking. It's a question of how does your government conduct itself? Right? Does it make decisions above board in a way in keeping with the legislative process? Or does it make decisions in secret, be unelected in a back room with no public knowledge? Right? But beyond that, there's the issue of, is mountain biking really an activity that has a place in a public trail system? And the obvious answer is yes, because you look at everywhere where it works. The thing that bothers me, right? I understand if somebody was to say, for example, a dedicated downhill trail course is not something that can be shared with hikers. I totally understand that. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about general mountain biking, cross country, etc., just riding around essentially. That's something that has always worked and always will. And it will always be practical to share the trail with riders. And if somebody has an objection to mountain bike access on public parks, public lands, it's not because, I mean, unless it's just based on a misunderstanding. Right? It's not because of actual safety concerns. It's because they have some kind of objection to mountain biking that isn't related in the practicalities of how you would make it work safely. It's that they just don't want to share. They think mountain bikes, they don't want to have to see them, etc. That seems to be a pretty poor reason to base public policy on. So, today I went out there and I actually rode this thing instead of my road bike because I just felt like riding my mountain bike, but because I didn't have time to drive to another county to ride, I ended up putting 20 miles on the street on this thing. And I got in a little bit of some dirt road action, but that was about it. No mountain biking, because I didn't have the time to drive to another county to ride in one of their parks. And unfortunately, I live in Union County, and the place here is run by trail Nazis. What can I say? But that's kind of the point, right? It shouldn't be. We shouldn't have to live under rules made by people who, at best, have no understanding what they're talking about, and at worst, are actively engaged in and run around the electoral process and its democratic protections, which is kind of what happens when you have a 20-year-old policy based on a lie, based on a myth, enacted behind closed doors by the unelected without any public input or knowledge, and justified to this day by doing everything from, violating the Open Public Record Act law to try and keep shit secret, to, stealing $64,000 of taxpayers' money that was allotted specifically for mountain bike trails. And big surprise, they decided to cancel that, but they never changed the contract back. Why? Well, I don't know. I guess it was more important that they help out their buddies with the long green than it was that we get fair park policy. But just some thoughts on that subject. Lone Rider out.